Committee will come to order. Welcome to the Ways and Means Oversight Subcommittee hearing on examining the use of administrative actions in the Affordable Care Act. I'll begin with an opening statement, and then we will yield to Mr. Lewis, the ranking member, when he arrives. He's on his way, but he's asked us to move ahead. So with that, today we're going to be taking a look at administrative actions, that is, unilateral actions by the President and the executive branch as they implement and administer the President's health care law. The question we examine today is, if one President can ignore parts of the health care law, can another President ignore the whole thing? The issue goes to the core of our committee's mission to conduct rigorous oversight. House Rule 10 empowers us as a subcommittee to determine whether laws and programs are being implemented and carried out in accordance with the intent of Congress. And while we consider these issues today, it's also important to remember the larger context. The Affordable Care Act was passed by Democratic majorities in the House and Senate in 2010. It was signed into law by President Obama. If a President and Congress of one party can enact a law but reconsider and alter it after enactment, then what can a different President and Congress do with the same law or any other? Do laws matter at all? What about the votes of the American people? Do they matter? We're focusing specifically on executive actions relating to the Affordable Care Act, but don't lose sight of the critical importance of these issues at the core of our representative democracy. The question before us is not whether the administration is implementing the health care law, it's whether the administration is undermining the rule of law. And I believe the answer is yes. The administration is too eager to take unilateral actions to solve thorny political problems. It has created a false narrative that Congress is unwilling to take on these challenges. In fact, as we'll hear today, Congress has amended the Affordable Care Act over a dozen times. The administration's problem is acting out of expediency and not following the Constitution. So the old phrase comes to mind that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But the Constitution is clear. Congress writes the law, the President executes the law, period. The President cannot rewrite the law. If the President can make the law up as he pleases, there's no accountability. Putting this incredible amount of power in the hands of one person completely erodes the delicate balance that the Founding Fathers established through checks and balances. Ultimately, too, it takes away the meaning of our votes as American citizens. It's precisely because of this issue and the significance and the scope of the President's health care law that yesterday I introduced legislation to create a Special Inspector General to monitor the Affordable Care Act. It's modeled after the Special Inspectors General that Congress has created for Iraq and Afghanistan reconstruction and the Troubled Asset Relief Program, and together have produced taxpayer savings of almost $10 billion. So an enterprise as big and complicated as national health care reform surely deserves the same level of oversight as the earlier endeavors. And without objection, I'll insert the findings of my SIGMA Act into the record. Our hearing today will review some of the changes the President has made to the Affordable Care Act without congressional approval and impact of those changes. And to do this, we have four extremely knowledgeable witnesses: Elizabeth Pepez, a partner at the law firm of Winston & Strawn; Jonathan Adler, professor of law at Case Western Reserve University; Grace Marie Turner of the Galen Institute; and Robert Weiner from Arnold & Porter. And I want to thank all of you for attending and look forward to the insight and perspectives that you have. I know you're busy people, and you're being very generous with us with your time today, and I'm grateful.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rangel, let me finish my statement, and then
I apologize. That pause was misinterpreted by me.
No trouble. Let me just continue, and I will recognize you. Defenders of the law claim that the President's actions are routine uses of administration discretion. However, as we'll discuss today, administration discretion is not unlimited. In many ways, the actions are unprecedented in American history, as some of our witnesses will describe. I expect one witness will shrug this off. But I don't think the founders would shrug, and in fact, they were very apprehensive about just this situation, and here's the proof. Our second president, John Adams, wrote this in part in the Massachusetts Constitution. He said this: "In the government, the legislative department shall never exercise executive and judicial powers. The executive shall never exercise legislative and judicial power, And judicial shall never exercise legislative and executive power, so that it may be a government of laws and not of men. I want to emphasize that this is not hypothetical. This is not esoteric. This is not distant. This is at the very core of who we are as people. The unchecked use of unilateral executive action creates a dangerous and damaging precedent. And today we're here to learn a cautionary tale. Beware of a bad process that yields the result you desire. It can just as easily be used against you. In closing, this principle was brilliantly portrayed in the film A Man for All Seasons. You'll recall that this is the story of Sir Thomas More, and in a dramatic scene, an associate of his made the argument that he would cut down all the laws of England in order to get at Satan himself. More retorts that he would give the devil the benefit of the law for his own safety's sake. And let's not forget that laws exist to protect us. I know that members of both sides of this committee have strong feelings on this issue. I'm sensing that Mr. Rangel is so enthusiastic that he is seeking my recognition even now, and I look forward to our discussion. And with that, Mr. Rangel, I'm happy to recognize you. We're waiting for Mr. Lewis, who asked us to go ahead, but with that...
I